My name is Mischa and Beck. I'm also a 4-H BC ambassador. Just like Beck, we're in the same year, and this is my 7th year in 4-H, and it's my pleasure to be giving you this presentation today. Sorry, there's a little bit of the start was a little bit
Judge photography,
glitchy,
great to see.
I'm going to try this again, and all right, it seems to be working this time.
So welcome to the 4-H judging presentation. In this presentation, we're going to be covering a few different themes related to judging. Get the next slide, Mischa.
All right, so sorry, here's our table of contents. We're going to cover, actually Beck's going to cover this part.
So we're going to start off by covering what is judging. So we're just going to do a quick, really basic summary because I looked in the chat and a lot of people are quite new to 4-H judging. So we just want to catch everyone up to speed if you've never heard of 4-H judging before, or if you've never done it yourself. We're going to be going over some of the basics and in summary, what 4-H judging is from both of Mischa and I's experience. And then after that, we're going to follow up with why should you judge? Because there's a variety of different reasons why you should judge. Judging will help you and it will give you benefits within your 4-H club, but we're also going to talk about how it will help you when you're older and in various other aspects of your life. And then following that, we're going to talk about how to judge. So we're going to give you some tips and tricks to make you the best at your judging rally possible. A lot of this will come down to practice, but there's a few strategies that will really improve your performance when judging. And we're also going to talk a little bit about how judging is scored. So we're going to give you some of the basics under how to judge. And then finally, we're going to finish up with a little bit of an activity that Mischa and I will run and a chance for all of you to try a little bit of judging yourself. And we're going to finish up with some resources. So if you've liked what you've done tonight, you enjoyed the judging and you want to try it yourself, it'll give you a little bit of an opportunity to practice the judging. So we'll link some sites that you can look at. And then at the very end, we'll get Jarrett to come in and talk about some judging opportunities and explain how you can find some of these judging resources. And then we'll finish it off with some questions if anyone's unsure of certain things or wants to learn more. So without further ado, Mischa can start us off with what is judging.
All right, thanks so much, Beck, and sorry for that lapse in my technology, but here we go. What is judging? So here we're going to be talking about what judging is and what you're evaluating when you're talking about 4-H judging. So 4-H judging is might be a little different from what you might think when the word judging comes to mind. It's an activity, and 4-H judging is a big part of 4-H. It's an activity you take part in when you're asked to form opinions about presented items, and I should say it's always 4 presented items of a certain category, and you arrange them in order of the most to least useful. So you can see there's a little list, whether it be beef or dairy, those are both cows, horses, bird houses, that would be part of the outdoor living project, or photography, you might get 4 photos. You're always going to get 4 examples of something that's meant to perform a task or a livestock, and you're supposed to rank them from the most to least useful or productive in the case of beef or dairy. And just like public speaking and other competitive 4-H opportunities, judging is something you can do on a club level. It's something you can do on a district level. There's an exception. There is no judging at the regional level in 4-H BC, but you can do it at a in 4-H in Canada, but you can do it at a provincial level. So it goes quite high up. And it's a great skill to have, and that's what Beck's about to talk about right here.
For sure.
I should actually go back. Did I miss anything, Beck?
No, I think you covered it well, Mischa. 4-H judging is quite useful to have, and I'll get to that in the next slide. But It is basically just evaluating different items or animals that are given to you, and you're going to be given a topic. So an example for that is which dairy cow would be the best dairy cow to have at your farm to produce the most milk. And you're basically going to look over the 4 dairy cows that you're being presented with and looking at the different physical features that the dairy cow has. You're going to assess which dairy cow is the healthiest, and if it's the healthiest, it most likely will produce the most milk and be able to work the longest. So that's just a quick example under what a possible 4-H judging activity might look like. But we can move on now to what the benefits of 4-H judging are.
One thing actually, Beck, I should say, and I've experienced this too, there's going to be, when you're trying out 4-H judging, there's going to be some categories that are a lot harder than others. For example, for me and Beck, we don't own cows. When we tried to judge cows, it was a pretty tough experience for us. They kind of all looked the same to me. But just like everything else, it gets a lot better and a lot easier with practice, and it ends up being a really fun activity. Anyways, on to why should you judge?
So there's various different benefits to judging. Some of these benefits will help you within 4-H, and it will also help you outside of 4-H in your general life. So having a strong understanding of how to judge will really help you within 4-H, because many 4-H clubs will have something called Judging Rally Day, which is basically where all the members of the club are given the opportunity to judge a variety of different 4-H projects, animals, or objects. It depends on which club you have or which region. If you have a club that is connected to beef, most likely you're going to be judging beef. Because Mischa and I belong to a very small club in Vancouver, we typically do judging with the district. So what that means is we will be able to judge a variety of different projects. So some of the examples that we talked about earlier are some things that Mischa and I have judged. But I think judging, no matter what topic you have, will help you in the following areas of learning, communication, decision-making, evaluating, and your confidence. So what do I mean by that specifically? Well, as Mischa and I were talking about earlier, you'll often run into, if you're doing judging at especially a larger scale, such as provincial or a district level, you're going to run into things and animals that you have had less experience judging. So the best way to go about that is to try your best and to learn to do by doing. So to this day, I don't do judging very often, but whenever I do, I still learn, even though I've had a little bit of experience in a variety of different judging areas. Now, another key aspect of judging, one of the benefits that you'll experience if you practice it, is communication. Judging, there are two basic types. There is an oral and a written. So what that means is we're going to be mostly focusing on the written type of judging today, but it's going to really help you form words into a convincing sentence, either when you're speaking or when you're writing on your judging card, which we'll talk about later. And this is also connected to decision-making. You need to choose how to organize a class. So as Mischa said earlier, there are 4 different animals or objects, and you need to decide which is the best and which is the worst based off the criteria that you were given. And this is also falling under evaluating. You want to decide what order you want, and you also need to evaluate using the criteria that you were given, and you need to talk about why one item or animal is better than another. And finally, confidence. The more you do it, the more confident you'll be in your abilities, and confidence really comes with practice. But once you are confident with your judging abilities, it will often carry over to other skills that will be used in 4-H, such as public speaking abilities, or just speaking and communication in general outside of 4-H in your day-to-day life. So within 4-H, as I mentioned, judging rally is something that many clubs have. So it's going to help if you choose to judge within 4-H. But if you discover that through trial and error that judging is not something for you and you don't really want to do it, even if you practice judging and you don't do it regularly, it will still help you learn to evaluate what makes a good project, not only an animal or object. So if you're someone who's more oriented with public speaking or just general 4-H presentations and projects, it will help you evaluate where the errors and flaws are in your projects or presentations. And finally, it will give you the ability to judge projects or speeches. Many members, maybe not in this meeting, but I know many members such as Mischa and myself who are getting a little bit older now. And once you get a little bit older and you grow out of 4-H, it's really good to give back to 4-H. And a really good way to do that is to volunteer to judge a public speaking event projects within your club, various different things. And judging animals and items will give you the skills you need to judge these projects or speeches that you may want to do in the future. And as I mentioned at the start of the slide, it also benefits you outside of 4-H. So when you're a little bit older, you're going to be possibly making some larger purchases, like buying a vehicle or a piece of property, a house, somewhere to live, something like that. And these big decisions will require a little bit more thought, and you might want to evaluate it with more detail. And these skills will come with practice from judging. So the more you judge, the more you will have confidence in your decision and be able to evaluate, and you'll be able to explain your thoughts and ideas in an organized manner within a workplace setting or within school. So this is a lot of information here, but basically judging can help you in so many different ways within 4-H and outside of 4-H. Is there anything else you'd like to cover, Mischa, or do you think we can move on?
Absolutely, Beck. I totally agree. If there's one thing I could say, which is basically kind of what you said, but every day we make hundreds, maybe even thousands of choices and decisions. There can be big decisions that we make over weeks that we think about a lot. There can be tiny decisions that we make in 1 second. But it's this methodical process that 4-H judging involves that makes it so valuable. Anyways, let's go on to how to judge. In this section, we're going to go over what the process is in 4-H for 4-H judging, because there is a certain process, there's a certain language to put on the judging card, and there's as the judges, because there actually are judges that judge your judging, as they evaluate what is on your judging card, they're actually going to be looking for not only your reasons, but also the way you wrote them down. So let's go into that a little bit. We kind of already talked about this, but how 4-H judging works is you'll be presented with 4, and it's always 4 different examples of your category. So 4 cows, 4 writing utensils, 4 dishes of food, 4 birdhouses, like I said. In some cases you might be judging a specific aspect of the animal. So when I said 4 cows, it's not just going to be 4 cows, but they're going to specify what the cows would be used for. So for example, if we're going to say 4 dairy cows, and you have to judge which one would be the best, would produce the most milk. But then you might get 4 beef cows, and in that case, you're going to judge which cow is going to be the best producer of meat. And it's the same with say bikes. We're going to do an example later where you're going to judge bikes, and you're going to have to, if you want to judge them, you're going to specify, or you're going to have it specified that, okay, you're judging bikes based off of which one is the best to get around the city in. But then there might be a different category. Okay, now you're going to judge bikes, and you're going to pick which one would be the best one to bike down a mountain biking trail. So it's often not just the object or the animal, but there's more of a specificity there. Everyone gets a judging card, and I'm going to show you what that looks like on the next slide, and later we're going to fill one out in front of you. And obviously you decide how the 4 products should be ranked. You always rank them 1 through 4 from best to worst. 1 through 4, that's, so basically start with the best one, and then second best, third best, and in the last box, because there's 4 boxes, and in each one you're comparing the better to the worst. In the last box, you explain why the last one is the worst. And yeah, details. So I'm going to show you how it works right here. Whoops. So can everyone, maybe just a show of, give me a thumbs up if you can see this mouse right here. Can everyone see this mouse? This like cursor?
I think we're
okay,
good.
Wonderful. So I'll just use it as a pointer. Obviously, you'd fill out the pertinent information here. This little box, the judges actually are going to write here what score you got, so ignore that. But you would write here, obviously, your name, your club. The class is just what category you're judging. The placing. So this, I was a little confused by this at first, but like I said, you get 1 through 4. You get 4 options. And what you're going to do is you're going, the first, second, third, and fourth refer to which one you think was the best, the second best, the third best, and the fourth best or the worst. So suppose you got 4 goats, and you were judging which ones might produce the best milk. And you really liked goat 3, you'd write 3 in right here. The first one is 3. Say then second was 4, third was 1, and fourth was 2. So you just write numbers here. Over here, you're just methodically going through why you placed them as you did. So for here, you would say I place, and then whatever number you said for first over whatever number you said for the second. And then here you go second compared to third. In this one, third compared to fourth. And then finally, in the last box, you talk about why you placed fourth last. And we're going to go into more detail about this in the following slides. And I think, Beck, you want to do this one?
For sure. So going into how to use a judging card, Mischa just showed the different parts of the judging card, and he talked about how you should fill in your information at the top. A couple of tips and strategies when filling out the boxes. You want to, first of all, starting with your first box, which should be full of mostly positive reasons. You want to explain why you place something over another reason. So you're going to start with your first box. You're going to list all the positive traits that it had. And then moving on to your second option, you want to talk about how the second option is worse than your first option. There is multiple different ways you can do this, but you always need to provide evidence. And what I mean by that is you want to avoid saying things that maybe your younger brother or sister would say, like because, or it's just better, things like that. You want to give specific reasons why it's better. And I think the best way. Sorry, what's that?
Can I just jump in here for a second?
Sure.
We sent out some material prior to this webinar, and I think one of the things we sent out was a fillable judging card. So because we're not on this slide, maybe you would want to open that, or if you've printed it out, just take a look at it as Beck's speaking so that you can reference what he's talking about to the card.
Does everyone understand what we're talking about? Can I get some thumbs up? Maybe type in the chat. Are you guys able to access that document?
This section's a little wordy, what's coming up, but then we're going to open one and fill it out in front of you, and then I think it's all going to come together and make sense.
Sounds good. Perfect. So the main takeaway when filling out a judging card is you want to give specific evidence and you want to list pros and cons. So what I mean by that is the good things and the bad things. Often an item will be good, but it will have bad traits as well. And typically your best item will have very few to no bad traits, but it will always have the least number of bad traits compared to the second option and the third and the fourth in your placement. So what you want to do is you want to provide evidence showing that it's better. So an example of this could be, I place bike number 2 over 3 because bike number 2 had higher quality. The materials were more durable. So that's giving a specific piece of evidence showing why it's better, and you're not just saying it's better, you're giving a reason why it's better, right? So
for sure,
what you want to do is you want to talk about how an item might be good, but there also might be a really bad trait with it. So the bike might have really good quality, but it might have a flat tire or something like that. So in that case, what you will say is granted.
Oh, wait, Beck, we're going to get this. That's on the next slide. But can I just say one thing before we move on to that?
For sure.
One thing, so I hope you can all see my cursor again. This point right here is very important. In each box, you never explain how the second option is worse, only how the first one is better. So I'm just going to go back here. Suppose your favorite bike was number 2. That's what you say first. Your second favorite bike was number 3. So here you're going to say, I place 2 over 3 because, and then you're going to list comparative reasons why 2 is a better bike than 3. But what you're never going to say is why 3 is a worse bike than 2. And if that doesn't make sense, what you would say, the proper sentence to say would be, I place 2 over 3 because 2 has a very durable frame, whereas 3 does not. And what you wouldn't say is 3 has a really weak frame, 2's frame is stronger. I know that's a pretty petty thing, but you always have to be comparing the better to the worse, the better to the worse, the better to the worse. And in the final box, that's where you talk about why the lowest one is the worst. Just wanted to put that out. Anyways, Beck,
Why don't we
do you have
move on
anything
to
else to say?
No, we can move on to the next slide.
So sometimes you might have a lot of reasons to place one item over another, but maybe there's one good thing that the lower ranked item has that the upper ranked one does not have. So for example, you might find two pencils. One of them has a working eraser, it has a sharp point, and it has a 4H logo on it, and the number 2 has none of this. And let's just suppose it's like general 2 pencils for writing. But let's say that number 1 is really short and number 2 is long. So this is one thing about number 2 that is better than number 1, even though there are a lot of things about number 1 that's better than number 2. So in this case, you could say, granted, number 2 has a longer lifespan than number 1, because obviously you're going to sharpen it, and then after like a little while, number 1's going to be done for. So if you have more than one grant, if you have more than one granted, then seriously rethink your rankings, because it may very well be that this item that you're giving all the grants to actually deserves to go above the other item. So that's one example of an exception. And then I'll just do the conclusion because it's 2 short slides. You always end by saying, these are my reasons for placing this category of, and then you say what you are judging and you list your rankings. So for example, these are my reasons for placing this category of pencils 1, 4, 2, 3. Going back here, if you all see this untitled box at the end, that's where you would write that. And it's always that exact sentence, and you just fill in whatever the class was. I should say class, not category. And then what your rankings were. These are my reasons for placing this class of whatever the class was, and then 2, 4, 3, 1, whatever your numbers were. That was really wordy. So why don't we try it? Oh, okay. Actually, first, Beck's going to talk about some general tips for the judging card to make sure you have the best possible presentable judging card when the judges look over it.
Yeah, so there's a lot of wording here, but I'll break it down in a more simple way. So people will always have their own opinions, and they're always going to value different characteristics in an animal or an object slightly differently. So a judge might have a slightly different idea of what object is better than another or what animal is better than another, but I'm going to later talk about how that's not necessarily such a big deal. But I would say one thing that most judges and people have in common when looking at an item or an animal is practicality over aesthetics. Now, this really comes down to more objects opposed to animals, but you want to make sure that if it's going back to the pencils that we were talking about, a pencil might be super cool. I'm sure some of you might have friends at school with like the crazy, sparkly rainbow pencils, but they might have really bad lead that doesn't work very well. So when you're looking at pencils, again, as an example, you want to look at what pencil is going to write the best, or what pencil is going to last the longest, more so over what's the prettiest. You can take the aesthetics into account, but I would say always put practicality over aesthetics. That's a good general point when judging. Another tip is try to include at least 3 points on the animal or the item, and you want to try and keep those points consistent throughout. So if you're talking about the quality, for example, you want to try and talk about the quality for all the items, not just saying number 1 has good quality and leaving it at that. You want to try and talk about how item number 3 has really poor quality as well, if possible. Now I'm going to move on to, as I said before, if you have a slightly different placement than the judge, so your numbers are in a slightly different order than what the judge put, this isn't always the end of the world, and you still have a shot at placing. As judges do something that I'm going to call a split in points. So what this means is if an item is really, really poor and you have a pencil that's totally broken, no lead, you can't even write with, that's clearly the worst pencil. So what this means is if for whatever reason you mistakenly put this pencil as number 1, you're going to lose a large number of points because the gap in what
split is big.
Yeah, the gap in quality between pencil number 3 or pencil number 1 and the worst pencil is very big. So what this might mean is you're going to have a large number of points lost if you mess the order up. So let's say that you will lose 15 points if you mix up the order and put the pencil that can't even write above the pencil that has the highest quality. However, if there are 2 pencils that both write very well, but one of them has an eraser on the end, and you put the pencil without the eraser over the pencil with the eraser because you like the color more or something like that, then you might only lose 4 points because the difference in quality and level of the pencils are not as big as the pencil that can hardly write and the best pencil with the eraser and writes really well, right? So I think the best thing to do is look at all the items very closely, but when in doubt, just fill it out because as I'll get to later, you don't want to waste time deciding what order you should put it in when you're running out of time and you need to start filling information out on your judging card. So I would say the most important thing when judging is managing your time well, because if you don't have enough time, then you can't put all your ideas down on paper. And if you can't explain your reasoning, then you're not going to be graded very well by the judge. So I've got a really good split for how to organize your time. You don't have to follow it exactly, but if you find that you're not very good at managing your time when doing things, this is probably something that's really good to follow. Typically, when judging, you're going to be given around 20 minutes, might be a little bit more, might be a little bit less. But I would say 15 to 20 minutes is the average amount of time that you're given. So the breakdown for time that I like to do is around 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes to look at all the items in the class. So this is where you're going to be looking at items 1, 2, 3, 4 and comparing them, looking at them all at the same time. And this is good because flaws will stand out because when you're evaluating something, it's always nice to compare to the other items in the class. But it's also good to look at the close details. And I find that it's easier to look at details when you're looking at the items by themselves. So what I like to do is after taking a good little glance or stare at all the items as a whole, look at the individual items. You're going to closely inspect what makes it a good item or what makes it a bad item. If it's an animal, same thing. You're going to look at that one animal closely. You're going to look at how its bones are. You're going to look at how its different qualities and traits are as an individual animal.
Can I insert something here, Beck?
For sure, Mischa.
A really useful thing to do at this or the previous stage is imagine, and this especially works if you're more experienced with, say, if you know a lot about cows or about goats, imagine yourself using the product. So if you're judging 4 birdhouses, it might be a good idea to imagine, okay, I'm a bird, which one of these birdhouses would I want to be in, and take into account, shelter and size and structure and, and then that actually removes some of the biases we might have of this one looks nicer, this one looks not as nice. And in regards to, say, livestock, you might want to imagine, okay, I know a lot about, say, cows, which one of these cows would I want to take milk from? Which one looks the healthiest? Or which one of these cows would I think would make the best, meat, would make the most meat? So if you imagine yourself taking advantage of or using the product, that can really help you make a decision. Go ahead, Beck.
So as I was saying, it's a really good idea to move to the item or the animal and identify under close inspection. And as Mischa was saying, it's also a good strategy if you're very knowledgeable about the topic to picture what the ideal item or animal could look at. But only do this if you have a strong understanding of what a really good dairy cow, for example, looks like, or a really good bicycle condition is, something like that. But if you're very knowledgeable, that's definitely a great strategy. Now, for the next 3 to 4 minutes, I typically like to compare all the items or animals, and I'm going to go through, organize the pros and cons. This is where I'm going to place them in the order that I think is best, and I'm going to start thinking of the granted points that I talked about. I'm going to start thinking about the good and bad qualities of each item. And then finally, for the rest of the time, what you're going to do is you're going to finish your notes. You can begin your writing in this third stage, the 3 to 4 minute area, where you decide how each article compares to another. But that's sort of point form notes, just getting your thoughts together. The rest of your time is where you're going to finish your notes and really write down all the reasons that you have for placing your class in the way you did. So moving on, we're going to do a little bit of an activity with everyone.
Oops, hang on. All right. So at this point, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Hey, Mischa, can I just pause for just a second here?
Go ahead.
We just had a couple hands that popped up in the chat, so I just want to give people an opportunity to ask a question if they have. I see all the hands have gone down now, but I've written down who had the hand up. So Hunter, did you have a question?
Yeah. So do we can't write anything negative about the second part, and we can only write something good about the first part?
Well, what you're doing is you're comparing the first to the second. And by that, I don't mean number 1 to number 2, but I mean the better choice to the worst choice in each box, except for the last one. You're comparing the better to the worst. But the thing is, you always have to say because, and then you say a reason why the first one's better, and then you say a reason why the second one doesn't have that. So you would never say, like, a better sentence would be, pencil number 2 has an eraser, whereas pencil number 4 does not. Rather than pencil number 4 is really scratched up, but pencil number 1 is brand new. And it's very subtle difference, but you're always saying this one is better, and this is why this one is not. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and when we fill it out, it's going to make a lot more sense.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Just a couple more questions here.
Do we always judge just 4 things?
Yes. The judging cards are arranged in a way where you will only ever judge 4 items. Maybe for fun within your club, you might judge more than 1 if it's just practice, but you typically wouldn't be using a judging card then, because the judging cards are arranged for 4 items. And in any competition at within your club, probably at a district level or at a provincial level, you will only ever have 4 items. But I've had maybe practice sessions where you might have more than 4 items, but on second thought, maybe I haven't. I think you will almost always have 4 items, and if it's a competition, you will.
You always have 4. It's a good number, actually, because if it were less, like 3, it would be pretty easy. Like, I think everyone would get full marks. And if you have more than 4, it actually gets a lot harder and a lot more debatable, your rankings, and the splits get a lot less. So 4 is a really good number. Okay, so at this point, we're going to open a fillable judging card. I'm going to switch my screen share to open it, and we're going to fill it out in front of you just so you can see what it looks like. And this is where I think it's all going to make sense. And then we're going to give you the opportunity to judge a class.
Real quick, Mischa, just go to the next slide. So everyone, to be clear, has these images. We sent it out in an email with the link to the meeting. You can click on these images because we're going to be switching to a different screen. So it's often useful if you're able to look at the images and look at the judging card at the same time. So we're going to have the judging card on our screen, so that way you guys can look at all of the bikes on your own screen. If you have a phone, you can look at it on your phone, or just have it to the side on a different window or tab.
Yeah, I'm going to have it on a different device. On the off chance that you didn't print it out or you're just seeing this for the first time, I'm going to leave this up here for like, say 30 seconds, and anybody who wants it, screenshot it right now.
And while that is happening and everyone's just taking a good look at the bicycles, examining the different features and traits that they have, it's important to note that we sent out, if you have the photo, the category as bicycle, but typically you won't have the category as best bicycle. You're typically going to have the best bicycle for a specific purpose. So in this case, we decided, what is the best bicycle for trail riding?
Well, obviously here you'd write just your name, but we're going to write Mischa and Beck. We are both part of the UBC 4-H Community Club. The class, bicycles for trail riding, you said? Age, I think this is our age. I'm going to put, Beck, you're still 17, right? No response. All right, let's just say 17.5 because that's a halfway point.
All right.
So here's the placing, and Beck, I think we'll agree on this. I'm going to place them 3, 1, 4, 2. Do you agree?
I agree with that placement.
Okay, and 3, 1, 4, 2.
Why don't I start with my reasons for placing 3 over 1, and then you can add a couple if I forget any. But absolutely. I think both 3 and 1 are functional bikes, but I would place 3 over 1 because 3 has thicker tires, which are better suited for riding on a trail as you may encounter roots or rocks or other obstacles. In addition to that, you can see that 3 has more suspension. So if you do encounter rocks or roots or any bumps in the trail, you don't really want to hurt your backside. So you want to have a little bit of spring in your wheels and in your seat. So that's another reason why I placed 3 over 1. And finally, 3 has a kickstand. So if you stop your bike on the trail on closer inspection, 1 also has a kickstand. So I would say another point that makes 3 superior, as they both have kickstands, is that 3 has better handlebars. I'm not sure if you're able to see. It's a very small image, and unfortunately, it is a little bit better when judging in person, as you can look at the items or animals more closely. But I would say 3 has better handlebars because they are straight and more gripped, which is better suited for trail riding. Is there anything else you want to add, Mischa? And yeah, I'm explaining this in great detail. I'm using lots of words. When you're writing, you're not going to have as much time, and especially if you're not the fastest with writing, you want to try and include more point form stuff, so you don't have to use as many words as I did when describing all of that. You can put down your main ideas, and you don't have to go into too much detail, but you want to make sure that you have enough detail that you explain your reasoning.
So, and we forgot to say this before, but in each box, it's ideal to put 3 to 4 reasons. So 1 or 2 are a little too few, and you don't want to like write an analytical essay on why 3 is better than 1. So just like, I just wrote 3 reasons because Beck provided 3 reasons. And basically what I was saying when I was saying always compare the better to the worse, you'll notice I say 3 and then 1. 3 has thicker tires, better suited for trail riding, while 1 has thinner tires, more suited to road biking. 3 has front and rear suspension, 1 has no suspension. So it's always that order. This is better and this is worse. There's definitely more of a split on this one. So 3 and 1, they're both pretty decent bikes. They'll get you around, but there's a bigger split between 1 and 4, even though there's still a clear like hierarchy of first, second, third, fourth. It's definitely more of a step down from 1 to 4, so that's something to bear in mind. My first reason is kind of the obvious. 4 looks really rusted, but what I'm not going to say is 4 is rusted whereas 1 is clean. Probably say 1 looks clean and new, while 4 is rusted and old. After that, I've related to 1, but I'll say 1 is sturdy and durable, while 4 appears to be flimsy and ill-suited to trail riding. And Beck, can you think of one more reason? That's all I've got so far.
For sure. I think a large part of trail riding is you want to make it through the whole trail, and you can only do that if your body feels comfortable. So I think maybe a more minor part of trail riding is you want to have some comfort. And I have a feeling that sitting on number 4's seat is not going to be very comfortable, and it could hurt you. And the handlebars also appear to be very rusty, so that could hurt you. So I think number 1, not only does it have better quality, but I think it's also safer than number 4.
That's actually, I think that can be 2 points. 1 looks, actually wouldn't say looks. 1 is a much safer choice for trail riding than 4. And our final point could be 1 would be, let's say 1 would provide a much more comfortable ride than 4. I guess it's your turn, Beck, for the reasons we're going to place 4 over 2. And this might even be an even bigger split here.
So 4 over 2, 4 has a very rusty chain. However, it does have a chain, whereas 2 does not. So you wouldn't really phrase it like that, but definitely you're going to talk about how 4 has a chain, whereas 2 does not. You can also talk about the tires, because if you don't have tires, that won't get you very far. So 4 has tires where 2 does not. And then I would say a third point, and Mischa can be writing it in proper phrasing. I would say something else that makes 4 better than 2 is that it has a seat. You want to be able to sit on something when you're riding, not just the bar sticking up. That doesn't sound very comfortable or safe. So I think that is also a good idea. And if you want to include a fourth point, you can also talk about how number 2 is the frame to a road bike. And what that means is most likely you're going to, if you are able to find tires to the bike and attach it, which it currently doesn't have, but it would probably be thinner tires. So you can talk about how it's a road bike frame, whereas 4 looks like it's also meant for the city, but it would be a little bit more suited for a possible trail.
So that would be a great thing to place in the last box, actually.
Yeah, so those are 4 things you can talk about. But notice how Mischa has 4 has a chain, whereas 2 does not. You're talking about mostly number what 4 has, opposed to just focusing on number 2. And we're going to put the most focus into number 2 in the last box. So if we've finished that, we can move on to the next box.
Now, hang on a second. I think that we can do a granted right here. What do you think, Beck? Because although 2 won't get you very far, it does have a very nice paint job. So I'm going to say granted. And when you say granted, that's when you go backwards. You go to the worst first and the better second. So granted, 2 has a nice paint job, while 4 is rusted and look dirty. Let's say it's dirty. Actually, I'll say old, rusted and old. Here is where you place the last thing last, and you give your reasons for that. I placed 2 last because. So Yes, this is different from the rest because you're just going to be talking about why this one is last. But one thing, and we covered this before, don't slander 2. Don't be like 2 really sucks, because that's not, you wouldn't give a reason for that. Or don't like insult 2. Just give like logical and reasonable reasons why this one is last. And the important thing here, and this is where you really have to prove why it's last, is that you're not comparing 2 to 4 or to 3 or to 1. It's just 2 and nothing else. It's just the last one. So for example, I'm going to look for some really bad things. Here's a good thing that Beck mentioned. 2 has a road bike frame. So if it had tires, it would still not be well suited to trail riding. Let's mention 2 has a loose detached chain. And I'm taking a closer look at it. I think it's okay to state the obvious that we've already said before. We can say, as long as we're not comparing it, we can also say 2 lacks wheels and a seat. And why don't we, I think we need one more reason. Why don't we open it up to the chat? If anyone can find another reason why 2 isn't as good as the rest.
I have one observation. It does not have suspension, which is probably a good idea when you are riding on a trail, especially if it's rough.
Oh, someone mentioned no kickstand. I like that one. 4,
no
I think 4
kickstand
also
as
doesn't have
well.
one, but you know,
So
why don't we
these are all good points. We're running a little bit behind on time, so those are good observations to make. I'm quickly just going to do the last box, which is your conclusion. So you're going to talk about, I believe that this class of bicycles used for trail riding should be placed 3, 1, 4, 2 for the reasons that I have given above. You can phrase it in a way like that.
Yeah, the sentence is always the same though. It's always, these are my reasons for placing this class of trail riding, I don't know, yeah, trail riding bicycles, and then you list 3, 1, 4, 2.
Perfect.
So like I said, it's always this sentence. It's just, here you'd say whatever the class was, and here you'd list your rankings. And interestingly enough, sorry, the judges actually at the end read out their judging cards. And so orally, they will say at the end this as well. These are our reasons, or these are my reasons for placing this class of trail riding bicycles 3, 1, 4, 2. And sometimes I've actually seen people have to present their reasons orally as well and have to read that at the end. You actually get points for that.
In the attached section of your email, you should be able to find these images. So we're going to have you all separate into breakout rooms. So you're not going to be able to look at this any longer. So if you don't have that attachment in the email for whatever reason, you can screenshot it now or take a really close look and try and remember what all the different writing utensils look like. So the category for the activity that you guys are going to try yourself in groups, we're going to give you, typically you'll have 20 minutes. We're probably going to give you 10 minutes. So you might not be able to finish. That's okay. It's just so you guys can try it yourself. And if you have any questions that come up when you're trying it yourself, you can ask it later on. So it'll be a chance for you to discuss with other people what you think the best writing tool is for a math test. That is your topic, and these are your options. You're welcome to volunteer and talk about some of the things that you noticed or what you placed in the chat. And sure. While you're doing that, Mischa and I are going to talk about how we would place it, and we're going to explain our thought process. And at any time, you can also ask a question if you disagree with us, or if you ran into a problem or you were unsure of something when doing this activity. But why doesn't Mischa take it away with how he placed it? And
sure. And maybe we could get one representative from each breakout room to just send their reasons.
I was the one that organized these writing tools for a math test. So Mischa's kind of in the same boat as you guys. He was thinking about how he would place it during this 10 minutes as well. And then I will explain what I think it is if you guys would like. But I think Mischa will do a good job covering everything. So Mischa, do you want to start off?
Right. I will. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you my judging card. Not the bikes one. Here it is. Share. And everyone can see this? I'm going to take your name out, Beck. Okay. So, and I'm going to present it to you kind of informally, but I'm going to present it to you how I might do so if I were presenting it orally. I placed this I placed this class of writing utensils for a math test 3, 1, 2, 4. I placed 3 over 1 because 3 has an eraser while 1 does not. 3 is a standard pencil. The use of a pen like 1 is frowned upon in a mathematics test setting. And 3 can be sharpened, but 1 may run out of ink. I place 1 over 2 because 1 has a finer tip than 2 and thus allows for more work to be done on a page. 1 has a finger grip while 2 does not. 1 will not bleed onto pages underneath, 2 will. Granted, 1 has red ink, a color usually used for marking math tests. So obviously you don't want to write in red ink. I place 2 over 4 because 2 is a more standard writing utensil than 4. 2 has a finer tip than 4 and thus allows for more work to be done on a page. 2 is longer and easier to hold than 4. I place 4 last because 4 is short and awkward to use. The tip of 4 would be prone to breaking. 4 is a colored pencil, which would probably be looked upon with scorn. And at this point, I didn't get to writing this part down, but then I would say, these are my reasons for placing this class of writing utensils for a math test 3, 1, 2, 4.
I agree. When I was choosing these images, I decided that I would probably place it the same way, 3, 1, 2, 4. And I'll go over some of my reasons for placing the class in this order. When writing a math test, you often are prone to making mistakes and errors. And having an eraser is very helpful to erase your mistakes. So that was one of the things that stand out. And that's one of the reasons why I placed 3 above all the others. Also, the fact that it has a very fine point, you can make detailed small numbers. And I think a pencil is generally better than a pen when writing a math test. I placed 1 over 2 because 1, again, has a much thinner line. It also looks like it is more comfortable to hold, which is useful when you're writing a math test as it may be long. And I think number 1 also has a little bit better quality, just looking from the materials. But granted, number 1, if it does have red ink, many teachers, when they're marking your math test, may use a red pen to circle mistakes. So that might be something that makes number 1 a little bit less desirable. Now I placed number 2 over number 4 because number 2 has a cleaner line when drawing, and number 2 also looks like it's going to be a little bit more durable. It's going to last longer during a math test, and it's less likely to snap in half. Granted, number 2 might seep through the page, whereas 4 will not. But I would say I placed number 4 last because it's the least durable out of all of them. Crayons are prone to snap. It's also not very pigmented, so it might be hard to see what you're drawing with or writing with. The numbers might not be clear. And also, it's not a very fine line. It's very thick. So I agree with Mischa, and I think we can move on to the resources and then followed by the questions.
For sure. One really quick thing. Obviously, this looked easy at first, and I think a lot of people immediately went, okay, three's the best, 1 is next. But there's actually a pretty small split between 2 and 4. And what that means is I see a lot of people typing in the chat 3, 1, 2, 4, but I also see people typing 3, 1, 4, 2. There are arguments you could make for 2 being above 4 and arguments you could make for 4 being above 2. And when you hand in your judging card and you said 1, 3, 4, 2, but the judges said 1, 3, 2, 4, if your argument was convincing, if you provided proper evidence and you gave a convincing argument, you're really going to lose little to no marks because the split is so little that an argument can be made for the other way as well.
For sure. And as I said earlier, if it's very close, judges might have a slightly different opinion, but if you explain your reasoning, you won't lose too many marks. Just because we're running short on time, I think we should move on to the judging resources. So judging resources are great to have, especially if you want to get better at judging, and practicing judging will only make you better. So 4-HBC has published a few guidebooks on various different topics, such as livestock, creative arts, and just general guides to competition, general guides to the 4-H judging card, and oral judging, and talking about oral judging cards as well. Also, if you go to the 4-HBC website, there's an interactive livestock judging quiz, so you can practice judging different animals, your favorite animal. You can learn what makes a good and bad chicken, as an example.
Now, what I'm going to do at the moment, sorry, Beck, keep on speaking. But what I'm going to do, I'm just jumping in here. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to put it in the chat, and then you can have it. Go ahead, Beck.
And the above bullet points with the different guides, you can find that by using your 4-H registration. Once you register as a 4-H member, you can log in and find these guides. But I think at this time, Jarrett can explain a little bit more how you can find these resources, and he's going to talk about provincial judging. So Jarrett, if you're here, you can explain that whenever you're ready.
Sure, thanks, Bex. Okay, so yeah, there's a number of resources that Beck and Mischa already shared with you. So I just wanted to sort of explain where those can be found on the 4-H BC website. So the first place you can find those resources, the list that Beck had just spoken about. If you go to the 4-H BC website and on the home page, you'll find this bar here. If you go to navigate to the members tab and go down to members resources, where you can see that green arrow. If you click on that, that'll take you to a landing page where you would log in there. So Beck had mentioned this, but upon completion of your 4-H member enrollment each year, you would receive an email that has generic login credentials for these pages. So they're not individual to your specific member. These are generic logins. So just note that the login changes yearly. So every time you enroll in 4-H each year, it'll be a new login. If you didn't receive this login information for whatever reason, talk to your 4-H leader or your parent. You can contact 4-H BC and they'll make sure you can get access that way. So once you log in, you'll be taken to this page here, and you'll see there's a bunch of subfolders with all the different 4-H project and program areas. So if you scroll down, you'll find one tab called Judging, as you can see by the green arrow there. And once you click on that, you will get to this page that lists all of those available judging resources. So this is the same list that Beck and Mischa had shared in their presentation as well. So you can download those as PDFs right to your printer. You can print them as well. And the judging cards are fillable PDFs as you received as well. So you can work on those directly on your computer also. So they also mentioned there's a number of interactive judging resources that 4-H BC has as well. So I just wanted to quickly discuss some of those. So there's 2 of these, and the first one is the online judging platform. So to get there, you see the resources tab at the top of the homepage on 4-H BC. you click directly on that, you will get to another page that has a number of boxes, subfolders here, including the interactive livestock judging, and that's where you want to go there. So the first one I mentioned is the online practice judging platform. So this resource allows you to test your judging skills by participating in a series of virtual judging classes. So all you need to do is input your name, and the site will take you to the page that you can see here. So this is where you can select which class you want to judge. So each of the classes opens by a short preamble video explaining the class you're about to judge and some of the things you might want to consider in your reasons, followed by viewing the class, which will be, depending on the class, they'll be in the form of videos and or pictures, similar to the class that you practiced judging earlier today. So you'll be able to use the digital judging scorecard to input all of your placings and reasons directly in there. So once you complete that, you'll be able to download that card as a PDF, and then you can do whatever you'd like with it. So perhaps you might take it to your 4-H leader or to an expert who could also judge the class and help you with some pointers and feedback. But certainly, even if you're not getting it evaluated by someone, it's good practice to be able to fill out a judging card with a live judging class. That way. See a couple hands up, so I'll get the questions just at the end here, just because I know we are a little bit short on time. So currently available of the practice classes, there's beef, goat, horse, foods, and safety. And in just a few days here, we're going to have a few more up there as well. So you'll see sheep, swine, dairy, photography, and gardening as well. Just quickly are the livestock judging quizzes as well. So these are a series of quizzes which are great to brush up on your knowledge on various 4-H livestock projects. So all of the 4-H livestock projects do have a series of 3 quizzes that range from beginner, intermediate, and advanced. The questions in these range from short answer, multiple choice, fill in the blank, and even some of them have interactive components like the one you can see here, which is identifying parts of a beef animal that way. So this is a good opportunity if you're a little bit unfamiliar with livestock projects or want to sort of strengthen your skills in that area. And then the last piece I wanted to mention was the provincial 4-H judging rallies. So there's many opportunities for you to judge locally within your club and your district, but there's also a provincial opportunity as well. So this program takes place entirely online using an online judging platform, which is modeled similarly to the practice platform that I just showed you. The provincial rally is going to be taking place this year between October 11th and 18th. So this allows participants 1 week to complete a series of 5 livestock and non-livestock written judging classes. So as you can see on my screen here, there's great prize money available for you that way. So certainly if you have an opportunity to participate, I definitely encourage you to sign up. So for this, participation is limited. It is based on districts selecting participants. So certainly talk to your 4-H leader and they'll be able to instruct you of how your district is choosing participants for this. But every 4-H district around the province is eligible to send 2 junior and 2 senior 4-H members. So with that, I know we're right at time here, but I'll pass it back over to Beck and Mischa, who will finish up with some final questions.
I'll take Hunter first, and then Kelly, you can go after. Hunter, do you have a question?
So I'm just still confused on a few parts on how to do judging.
Yeah, what are those parts, Hunter? We'll try and explain it right now.
Like I'm confused on how you tell if it's good. I'm not that good of it. And I'm confused how you really do it.
Well,
okay. Well,
my recommendation, and I gave this before, but just imagine the ideal product. Imagine if you were using that, like for example, imagine you're writing a math test and you see those 4 writing utensils. Think, which one would I want? That really helps. And also just practice and it will get better. Did you want to say something, Beck?
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say you can watch this presentation again if you missed something. And I think the best way to get better at anything is just to practice, Hunter. So take the tips. You can re-watch the video, take the tips, and then you can also talk to your club leader and maybe you can do a few practice judging rallies with your club. Otherwise, you can use the online resources provided to get better. Sorry if we didn't fully explain that, but we're just a little bit short on time. And I think all of these resources will really help you out if you care to check them out. Now, do we have any other questions?
Thanks.
Awesome. No further questions. Well, we'll end it here. I'll let all of you enjoy the rest of your evening. And thank you very much for tuning in. And I hope you learned something about judging. Do you have anything else to say, Mischa?
No, thank you guys all so much for coming to the webinar. Again, it was a pleasure to teach you and a pleasure to present this with you, Beck. And I hope you all learned something, and I hope you all have fun judging in the future. Thanks.
Have a good rest of your evening, everyone.